once again to Changing Lives on the Inside. Richard Blaine and I are your hosts once again, coming into your home to tell you about United Prison Ministries International and how you can be a part of Changing Lives on the Inside. We have a special guest with us today. All of our guests are special, but this one is a special guest. Richard, who's our special guest?
Well, as a young lady I met, well, in fact, last year. In fact, I met her really in, I think, Detroit, Michigan. She happened to be at a convention where lawyers and judges were there. And that's where I met her, even though I understand I was at a meeting prior to her, with her in Columbus, Ohio, but I didn't know that. Sister Ellie, Conrad, so happy to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's really a pleasure. And after hearing her story, Shirley, about her background and everything, I said, you got to be on our show. So a few weeks ago, she came to the office. Maybe not that long ago, really. And so I said, you got to come down. We are doing some taping. And so she said, I'd be happy to come. Ellie, I understand that, I know looking at you, people won't realize that, but I understand, how many years have you been in the public's eye, I should say?
Well, I have been in television and broadcasting for the past 30 years. And as I always tell everybody, I started when I was 2.
But you know one thing? I just saw on the news the other day, a young girl, I think with the basketball championship, she was singing, just 2.5 or 3 years old. She sung God Bless America, I believe, on that. So she, you know, I can understand that.
It's possible, huh?
Oh, yes. Now that I see you, I believe it, though. But, you know, Ellie, you have such a wonderful story to tell us about your background. What do you do now? What is your...
I am currently the president and CEO of a marketing and advertising firm called 2 Life Publications. And that, even the name 2 Life was one that came to me through God. When I was looking at my company and really trying to figure out what do I want the name to reflect, because I really am a big believer in the name of your company needs to reflect what you are about.
That's true.
You know, I always tell people when I'm doing marketing, you know, the J&J Incorporated doesn't quite get it because people don't know what the business is about.
That's right.
And so I wanted to make sure that I was in a position to bring life to other people's projects and to give it a second life. So that's where 2 Life came in, when I was even just getting the impression of what is it I want to do with my company, how do I want it to unfold, and more importantly, how do I want it to benefit others? Because that is the way the business has to be. It has to be a benefit to others in order for me to receive the blessings.
And you know, when you said 2 Life, Shirley, I just thought about, you know, we're in the business of 2 Life too. It's born again. You know, because we're born sinners.
First time and second time.
That's right.
And you know, that is unique. I just thought it was, so we can work together there.
There we go.
Because 2 Life, born again.
That's right.
Because what this ministry is all about is changing lives, like Shirley said, on the inside. In fact, before I forget it, it's a special book that you even had.
Yes, I do.
Bible question answers that I want our public out there to see, that it changes lives. And we're making this available to people all over the country now. In fact, we just ordered another 52 million of these books to make available for people who would like to have it. So maybe at the present time they'd like to see this book or something about it. Bible questions answered now.
People in here, they're filled with questions. Serious questions.
How can God love a criminal?
Tough questions.
How can God reach me in prison?
Important questions.
Who will take care of my children?
But they're not the only ones asking questions. People out here, they're asking questions too. Just as serious.
What happens when I die?
Just as tough.
How can God forgive me?
Just as important.
Is there really a hell?
Now, you can give them all the answers. Real answers. Simple answers. Powerful answers. Bible answers. With UPMI's new Bible Questions Answered, call 1-888-876-4123 to get your copies of Bible Questions Answered. People everywhere are asking tough questions. Now, you can hand them an answer. Call now. The questions are tough. The answers are simple.
You know, Ellie, when I met you, I was talking to you about, and I shared this book with you. What do you think of this book that we just looked at?
Well, you know, I immediately got a case of 100 to take back.
You sure did,
Yes, I did, absolutely. And I was so impressed with it that it's something that I'm going to immediately implement at my church. I just so happen to be the women's ministries leader for the next 2 years. And one of our goals was to get back out into the neighborhoods and the communities and to have materials to be able to take with us. So this works perfectly into our ministry, absolutely perfectly.
Why were you so impressed with that book?
Well, you know, I'm an author,
yeah,
and so I study books. I study the makeup of books from a very different way than many people do. It's a perfect book. You know, the cover is compelling. You look at it, you have a clear understanding of what the book is about. When you turn on the back, which is exactly what most people do when they look at a book, they look at the cover, they're attracted to the cover, they immediately turn it over to see what the back of the book says. The back of the book is so interesting that it just moves the reader to want to open it up and go through it. And once they open the cover, this is like opening a gift. It is so beautifully colored inside. The colors are so easy to the eye, and they make it easy to read. And by being able to bold and highlight different areas, you're able to look at questions at a glance and say, oh, there's something there I've always wanted to know about. And it gives you the reference and everything right there. The size is perfect too. I can tuck it away.
So you see how important it is to have a marketing director.
But let me tell you something. I'm so excited, you know, that you're joining us in this capacity, and I hope you do it like Shirley does anyway. Just the other day, I was in Washington. In fact, I got off the plane in BWI, Baltimore Washington Airport, and I had to go up to the publishers up in Hagerstown, Maryland. So the gentleman that picked me up had been in the literature work for 44 years of distributing literature, you know. So, but he's retired now, and he was taking me to the publishing place. He said, let's stop off at a place to eat. So he stopped me off at the Golden Corral. And as we stopped there, I had given out all my books on the airplane, like you know, Shirley. I took about 40 or 50, but when I got with him, I only had 4 books left. So going into the restaurant, I said, look, I better leave one because I want to show it to the publisher the little changes I was going to make. So I took 3 with me. As soon as I walked in, the lady that has the tray there in the water, I gave her a book. And she looked at it, she says, my God. She says, this is just what I want, just what you said. And she says, in fact, I'm looking for a church. That's the first book. We go right down to the cashier. I give the cashier one. And then the cashier says, thank you. And she laid it down. Then we went to where they set us at, and then we went to get our food. When I came back, the waitress come up and say, hey, can I have one of those books? I said, what book? She said, what's in there is what I like. I said, have you been looking in my book? She said, no, I looked at the cashier's book, but she wouldn't give me her book.
There you
so
go.
therefore, I want one. And she said, it's exactly what I want. And so she took the book like this, and she went on through it. And then she said, you know one thing? How can I get 100 of these? That's what she asked me. Now, remember, this is the waitress now. And I said, well, we are making it available. She says, I want to get a box of this and give it to everybody coming to this restaurant. Then she walks off. Now, this is what really got me. Then she come back. She said, you know one thing? I said, you know, we're going to do 52 million of these. She said, it ought to be 100 million. She said, that's what she told me. Then the man I'm with, he's going to tip the waitress. And this really took the cake. He went to give her $3 or $4. She says, no, this book is enough for me. She said, I don't need the money. She said, I can use the money, but the thing about it, this book has been such a blessing, I can't take anything from you. So I said, well, you ought to take it so you can buy some more books, you know, I tell her that. But she said, I'm going to get it and send it to my church and put it out there so everybody can have this book. I said, because by that time we were there 30 minutes. She says, I've never seen a book like this. She says, prayer. Then she opened it up about all these other things. So I'm excited too. And like I said, we had said 52 million. She said it ought to be 100 million.
I agree.
But Ellie, come on, tell me more about yourself now. Now, a friend of mine's named Clarence Hodges, who I've been knowing for years. In fact, I first met him actually before he started working with George Bush Sr. He was working with him in the White House.
Right.
This is back in the 80s, you know. And then, of course, since then, I've been affiliated with him on a lot of other things. And he told me he met you.
Yes, he did.
How did you meet him?
And did he meet me?
How did he meet you?
Back in March, it was actually March 27th. of last year, 2002. I was the MC for the UNCF banquet for Oakwood College in Huntsville, Alabama.
How did you happen to be selected for that? Because, you know, that is a big thing. I mean, it's a big thing. Go ahead now.
Well, I had been working with another gentleman up in Huntsville, Mr. Kenneth Anderson, who has a program called the Conference on the African American Family. And I have come up there for several years, and I've been a presenter. And so one year he asked me to be the MC of his dinner. And I said, of course, I'll be honored to do that. And the lady who was the organizer for the UNCF banquet, Miss Jan Ross, saw me at that dinner and asked Kenneth, do you think we can get her? And he goes, well, I'm sure we might be able to. So, and I was not an Adventist at the time, but I was doing work with someone who was an Adventist. Little did I realize that I was being led to the path and the place that I needed to be. So they asked me to be the MC, and I was really excited about it because Susan Taylor, the publisher of Essence magazine, was the guest speaker. Being an author, I just knew, oh, this is going to be my big chance. I'm going to give Susan Taylor my book and my CD, and it's going to be, you know.
Hit a million.
That's right. Oh, that's my cell phone.
Go ahead.
Okay, and what happened then was that I gave her my books, and I thought, this is going to be it. This is going to be wonderful. But I never ever heard back from her again, and at first I was really going to be disappointed by that. I said, oh, what am I going to do? But little did I realize that the Lord had a different plan for me.
Tell us about the plan.
Clarence Hodges happened to be in the audience that evening, and I did not know him. Actually, I did not even realize that Oakwood College was a Seventh-day Adventist school. I just knew that this was an event that I was supposed to be, you know, emceeing. He came up to me and he asked me a little bit of information about myself, and we found out that we had a lot in common. I'm from St. Louis, and his wife is from St. Louis. And he had actually done a lot of work. He had lived in St. Louis for a long time, and he had done a lot of work. He had started a lot of churches in St. Louis. So we had that point in common. He's an author, and I'm an author. So he asked me, could I send you some of my books? And I said, absolutely, I would love to read them. So within a week, I received this big box from Clarence Hodges. Now remember, he had given me his card, but I hadn't really paid attention to it. But when I got the books, I started looking again.
You know, before we go in, we're going to go into a roll-in that we have available for you right now.
Okay.
And then we'll come back to him, okay?
Okay.
So if they can show that roll-in now, I would really appreciate it.
Well, at the age of 14, me and my brother had a dispute on the school bus, and I had hid my knife up under the bus, up under the seat, and I took it out and cut him across the chest. And the school bus driver asked me for the knife, and I told him, come take it. And he didn't say nothing. He just drove straight to the police station. And the officer came on the bus, and they asked me where the knife was. And I told him I found it on the bus. And when I gave it to him, he called my mother, and she came up and got me. So I had to go to the police station for about 30 days every evening to clean up the station. And meanwhile, while I'm cleaning it up, I found some marijuana joints in the disc drawer, and I had been seeing them on TV, and so I said, I'm gonna try one, so I tried one. And from now on in, it was just like, I was just wide open, you know, and then I got shot. I got shot at the age of 17. Got shot in the throat and in the leg. And the dude that shot me, I whooped him with a stick and went to jail for that, but he didn't go to jail when he shot me. And then a couple of years later, I got shot again. I got shot 13 times in the years that passed, and cut and stabbed 21 times. I had my head split with an axe.
Do you think perhaps God has a reason for saving your life?
Yes, ma'am.
And what do you think that might be, Larry?
Well, me, myself, I have said, me and my mother have talked about it, and I told her, I believe he spared my life to be a preacher, you know, and he spared my life many times. And
do you take advantage of the opportunities at this institution to witness to other individuals?
Well, I have did it. You know, like my kids, and when they be coming down, I be trying to talk to them about it. You know, and they be telling me, so Daddy, you did it. And I said, well, see where I am. See, he sent me here, like, you know, for a reason. He saved me, you know. And I got a son now, like 14. He's in some place in Birmingham. He be coming down on the weekend to see me now. And when I be talking to him about it, you know, he's still, well, if they send me to prison, I just have to go, you know. There's no place to be.
Okay,
This inmate had questions. This book answers questions. The fact is, just as Ellie had pointed out, on the back of it, it says, got a question about life, about God, or about the future? The Bible has the answers. The good part about this little book is the fact that it is a non-denominational book, because it covers questions that are asked by all denominations and answered by all denominations. They refer to their particular denominations and they give the answer with regard to their denominational stance on it. So if you're Jewish, it doesn't matter what you are. You can get answers from the Bible and this little book.
That's right. Last month alone, over 400,000 were requested by prisoners and their chaplain in the prison. Now let's get back to Ellie, because our time's going to run out of here. Now, Clarence Hodge, back to him.
Okay, right.
You gave him a what now?
He gave me his books.
His book.
I was going through a very difficult time. I've always been a Christian, but there were a lot of questions that I had that I felt were unanswered for me. And I was going through some difficult personal situations that people really couldn't understand. They thought that, okay, here's this woman and she's got this wonderful business and she's got this great family and life just seems to be going so well for her. What could she possibly, you know, have problems? What could they be? But people don't always see what goes on with a person. You can present the public face, but inside you could be dying. And that's where I was. And so the Lord saw that, and He knew that, and He sent Clarence my way. Clarence gave me a book, a very, very simple book, as a matter of fact, entitled Make Someone Happy. And I took that book to the beach with me that weekend, and I read it, and I read it, and it was so compelling. It had a lot of information in there. It took me back to the spirit of prophecy and what Ellen White would say about different subjects. It made so much sense to me. I sat there on the beach in Biloxi, Mississippi, and in one spot, I read it all day. I highlighted it. Even at the end of the day, when I could no longer read, I walked up on the pier and started sharing it with people on the pier, and people were saying, give me that book, let me read it, you know. And so it was really interesting. That next day I came back to that very same spot on the beach and sat there the whole day and just continued to read it and read it and read it. That morning when I got back to my office on Monday, I looked at Clarence's card again, and it was like, my goodness, he's somebody. He's a vice president of, you know, the Seventh-day Adventist Church North America Division. I called him, and I told him how much I appreciated his book, and that I really felt that it had answered the questions that I had in my heart. And I asked him, I said, what must I do to convert to become a Seventh-day Adventist? And he was shocked. He was absolutely shocked that I had read the book and had been so impressed to make that type of a move. But I knew it from the moment that I read the book that this is where I wanted to be. So he got on the phone and he called around the country to a couple of people that he knew. And one of those people had a brother-in-law who was a pastor in Birmingham, Alabama. So to make a long story short, I received a call from that pastor who then invited me to come and visit his church that Sabbath. Now this is where the story really gets interesting. I went to the church that Sabbath with my son, who is 16, and they had just finished a Revelation seminar and they were getting ready to baptize 27 new souls. So the church was just electrified, you could only imagine. The spirit was high, and this is my first time coming into the church, and I'm seeing all of this. It was like a little bit overwhelming. But I sat and I watched, and when he got to the baptism, the rite of baptism, he opened up the church to see if there was anyone else who wanted to give their life to the Lord. At that moment, there was a little girl who was sitting 2 pews directly in front of me, directly in front of me, 2 pews ahead. She had not spoken to me. There had been no communication, no conversation, nothing. Suddenly, she turned all the way around in her chair, completely around, facing me. Her eyes were riveted on me. It's so much so that I actually turned around and looked to see if she was looking at somebody behind me. I was like, who could she be looking at?
You,
right. And then I even said to her, I said, are you looking at me? And she just nodded. And I said, do you know me? And she shook her head.
No, huh?
And I thought, well, this is, before I could even think, all of a sudden, the voice of God came through this little girl's eyes. And it said, Ellie, it's time. It's time for you to be baptized.
Now, wait a minute, this is the voice you heard?
I heard it. I heard it. My son was sitting next to me, and he was looking at me, and he could tell that something was happening that was very unusual. And he kept saying, Mom.
The girl never opened up her mouth?
She never opened up her mouth.
And the voice said what?
It said, Ellie, it's time. It's time for you to be baptized. I will never forget that as long as I live. And I was just so shocked by it and overwhelmed by the scene that was going on in the church. You know, my heart was racing. It was just a moment that I just couldn't even describe to people. So I kept feeling it, but it was like I had these questions and I wasn't sure about baptism by immersion because I had been baptized before as a Lutheran, and did I need to be baptized again? It was all those kinds of questions. And so he closed the church to the baptism. As soon as he closed it, she turned right back around. And she didn't speak back to me again. So I watched the service, went through, but my heart is just racing. I couldn't wait for church to be over to speak with her. As soon as church was over, I called her over to me, and I sat her down and I said, do you know what you were doing? And she said, oh, yes. The Lord told me to tell you that it's time. It's time for you to be baptized.
Now, wait a minute. How old was this girl?
She is 7 years old.
Did you hear that, Shirley?
Now, when she repeated the exact words that I had heard, that was overwhelming to me. I just burst into tears and sat down in the pew. She went into her little purse. It was so cute. She went into her little purse and pulled out a tissue for me.
No kidding.
And handed it to me. Well, by this time, her mother saw what was going on. She saw me crying, and she came over wondering what was happening. And I said to her, I explained to her what had gone on. And she said, my child had turned around in church for 10 minutes and was looking at you and was talking to you and was, she said, I don't see how that could have happened. I was sitting right next to her and never saw or heard a thing. So she turned to the little girl and she said, Bianca, how many times have I told you never to turn around in church? And she said, Mommy, you've told me 100 times. She said, but the Lord told me to turn around and tell her it was time to be baptized.
Isn't that something?
And a little child shall lead them.
That's right.
Isn't that something?
And it overwhelms an intelligent, dignified, poised lady of the world who has all of this ability, self-confidence and everything. And a 7-year-old child has God's voice speak for that child, and the child says nothing, but the eyes have it all.
Have it all. And she knew. That was the thing. She
very
was
word.
very
She knew what she was telling you.
of what was happening and that she had been used by God to give me that message. I will tell you, that next Friday night at 8 o'clock, I was baptized.
What you say?
That's right. That next Friday night, I did
something?
not even wait until the next Sabbath. I wanted to be baptized right away. I remember that night, it was storming so bad, it seemed like the devil was saying,
that's right.
we're not going to let this one go. And I tell you, it was torrential downpour. But I was there, and the little girl was there, my family was there, and I tell you, it has been the most wonderful thing. It has changed my life so much. And I still continue along with my business. My business has just flourished.
Well, the Lord tells us He will bless our endeavors when we place Him in the primary position.
Right.
And that's the reason people need to get this book. and do just exactly what you said. Open it up. Look at the back of the book. Look on the inside. See what it has to offer, because once they see what this little book has to offer, there's no doubt in my mind that they will call United Prison Ministries, that they will write to us at P.O. Box 8, Verbena, Alabama, 36091, that they will say, I want to know more about the little book that tells me the answers to the Bible questions I have. And when we have these, then we need to know that they are the books that people are looking for. Now, I know that there'll be people who will want to contact us with regard to contacting you, Ellie.
Okay.
And so I need you to tell the viewers out there what your name and address and telephone number is, why they can contact you.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to do that. Again, my name is Ellie Conrad, and I'm the President CEO of 2 Life Publications. That's the number 2, the word Life Publications. You can reach me at 110 12th Street North, Birmingham, Alabama, 35203. My phone number is 205-314-3413, or you can email me at 2lifepub, and that's TWOLIFEPUB
All right,
Ellie.
now the people know how to contact you.
And if you forget, they can always contact us, because we're on a weekly program, and they can contact us, and we'll be sure to get them in touch with you, because you're going to help us. You know, I tell you about the lady that said 52 million. No,
Yes.
she said 100 million.
100
so you're
million.
going to have to help us to do that, because we believe in. That's the reason why we're making this book available now. After coming, I think we first introduced this book in August. At the AC convention in California.
Of last year.
And once we issued the book, 1 million copies just disappeared from people, from wards and prisoners who asked for the book. And so that's why I said, let's make it available to everybody. But we can only make it available to them if they just give us the cost of, you know, a box like you did.
Right.
You know.
And they can also contact us on the web page, Richard.
right.
Don't ever forget, we've got a big, nice, wonderful web page. And we'll have something about Ellie on our web page. That's one thing about Blandy. He's so good in updating our web page and putting the latest information on it for people. So we can put something on the web about Ellie, and that's www.upmi.org. upmi.org.
Now, you met Hugh Blandy. The Lord sent him in from Paris. And like I said, the Lord has sent you from prison. He sent you from California. He sent Hugh from Paris, so we can all work together. May God bless each and every one as we work together to a finished work. Thank you once again, because Jesus is coming soon. And believe it or not, thank you, and we'll see you again next week.